Situated amidst the tall buildings and busy streets of Hong Kong, the Kai Tak Airport had a unique and remarkable position. Despite being closed for over 25 years, it continues to hold a special fascination. Mentioning this airport today brings a sense of pride to both the people of Hong Kong and the pilots who used to land there. It's a cherished memory for everyone involved. It was quite a challenge for pilots, testing their flying abilities and courage to land a flight at this airport. With a crowded city and tall buildings all around, pilots had to carefully guide their planes for landing, leaving no room for errors. It was a tough task that required accuracy and calmness. When airplanes were coming to land at this airport, they flew really close to the buildings. People on the planes could see what other people were doing in their homes, and even see them watching TV. The airport was in a place where there were very tall buildings all around, and mountains on every side. It was on an island that was almost surrounded by the sea. Usually, when a plane lands at an airport, it follows a straight flight path and gradually descends to the runway. But at Kai Tak Airport, because of the Lion Rock Mountain in the north direction and tall buildings, planes couldn't simply descend directly to the runway. So from above the sea, the planes had to approach from the left side of Hong Kong City and then take a sharp right turn. After making the right turn, pilots had to carefully guide the plane down through a gap between the buildings, following a checkerboard marker placed on a hill in front of them. This required a lot of precision and caution to ensure a safe landing. While coming down, the planes passed very close to the buildings, and even a tiny mistake by the pilot could lead to a big accident. As the plane followed the glide path between the tall buildings, when it got close to that checkerboard point, something special happened. The pilot had to make a very sharp right turn at a 47-degree angle to align the plane with the runway of Kai Tak Airport. This turn was really important to make sure the plane landed safely on the runway. Just a few seconds before landing, making such a sharp turn used to make the heart of any experienced pilot race, along with the passengers. Right after taking that turn, in the next few moments, the pilot skillfully aligned the plane with the runway of the airport and landed it at the right spot. During this time, there was no room for mistakes or carelessness because there was a deep sea on all sides of the runway. If, for any reason, the pilot couldn't stop the plane before the runway ended, the plane could have gone straight into the sea. On the morning of November 4th, 1993, around 7 o'clock, something important was happening at Hong Kong's Kai Tak Airport. A plane called China Airlines 605 was coming in to land from Taipei. This plane, a brand new Boeing 747-400 with the registration number B165, had been given to China Airlines just 5 months ago. Until the day of the accident, this big and modern plane had flown for about 1,969 hours. This massive plane was equipped with 4 powerful engines from the Pratt & Whitney Company. 47-year-old captain, whose name wasn't revealed for some reasons, was landing the plane. Before joining China Airlines, he had been a fighter pilot in the Republic of China Air Force. The captain had a total flying experience of 12,469 hours, out of which 3,559 hours were spent flying planes like the Boeing 747. Similarly, the 37-year-old first officer also had a background as a fighter pilot in the Republic of China Air Force. He had accumulated a flying experience of 5,705 hours. During their final landing approach, as Flight 605 followed the checkerboard marker, the weather suddenly turned bad. The visibility decreased to only 5 kilometers due to the worsened weather conditions. In the challenging weather conditions, a McDonnell Douglas plane had landed safely at the airport just a few minutes before Flight 605. Seeing this, the pilots of Flight 605 felt hopeful that they could also land smoothly without any trouble. However, as the plane continued to descend, the weather worsened rapidly. The Air Traffic Control (ATC) tower informed the pilot about the final weather details, stating that winds around the airport were blowing at speeds greater than 25 knots. Taking this weather information seriously, the pilot began configuring all the control settings and airspeed according to the landing checklist. They set the flap position to 30 degrees and adjusted the landing airspeed to 140 knots. They also armed the speed brakes so that they would automatically apply upon landing to help slow down the plane on the runway. As Flight 605 approached to about 1,000 feet while following the checkerboard marker, the strong winds and rain made it difficult to control the plane's airspeed. Seeing this challenge, the captain made the decision to disengage the autopilot mode and manually take control of the plane. Due to the tricky landing approach and the bad weather conditions at the airport, the captain was struggling to monitor and understand the plane's airspeed and altitude. Inside the modern cockpit of the Boeing 747, information about attitude, airspeed, and altitude were displayed on a single screen. Because the airspeed was changing frequently due to the strong winds, the captain might have found it difficult to interpret the display readings accurately. However, with the assistance of the first officer, the captain was somehow managing to handle the airspeed control. As the flight got closer to the checkboard marker and started making the sharp right turn for the runway, that's when an alert warning alarm in the cockpit began to sound. At the same time, other alarms like the ground proximity warning and the glide slope misalignment warning sounding in the cockpit. In this type of IGS, Instrument Guidance System, landing approach, when the plane gets really close to the ground, these kind of warnings are not something unusual. The captain starts trying to align the plane with the runway. However, due to the strong winds coming from the front, it was quite challenging to align the plane with the center line of the runway. Moving quickly, the shaking plane touches down on the runway, around 480 meters ahead of the landing point threshold of runway 13. As per the auto setting, the speed brakes are automatically applied as soon as the runway is touched. However, about 2 to 3 seconds after landing on the runway, when the captain should have moved the throttle lever into the reverse mode, there's a mistake where the lever is accidentally pulled forward instead. This unintentional action causes the speed brakes to disengage. Usually, it's through the combination of speed brakes, auto brakes, and reverse throttle that pilots smoothly bring the plane to a stop on the runway. Now, due to the incorrect throttle action that caused the auto brakes to deactivate, the plane, racing down the runway, starts veering slightly to the right direction off the center line as it speeds ahead. The captain tries to quickly guide the plane back to the center line. Suddenly, the co-pilot notices the auto brakes and immediately tells the captain to use the manual brakes. Without wasting any time, both pilots press the foot brake pedals. But by this time, a lot of time had already passed, and the captain realized that it was nearly impossible to stop the plane before the runway ended. Seeing this, he makes a bold decision and steers the plane to the left side deliberately, aiming to save the plane from plunging into the sea before the runway runs out. Breaking through the runway's boundary, Flight 605 eventually crashes into the sea. Due to the bad weather, the airport's emergency services, which were already on standby, immediately dispatched the fire brigade and ambulances to the crash site. Trying their best, the flight crews started the evacuation process immediately. 10 people got minor injuries in this incident, even though the crash was severe enough for the new plane to be declared a total loss. It's remarkable that in such a tragedy, all the passengers and crew members were sound and fine. The plane was removed from the water and placed on one side of the airport. The damage to the plane was so extensive that repairing it was not even a consideration. According to the investigation, when the plane's airspeed couldn't be controlled and numerous warning alarms were sounding in the cockpit, the captain should have canceled the landing in the final moments and performed a go-around. Not only did he fail to properly understand his landing approach, but he also couldn't effectively communicate it to the first officer. A few minutes before Flight 605's landing, a British Airways flight also decided to cancel its landing due to the bad weather conditions. Hence, the investigators acknowledged that the captain of Flight 605 should have also chosen to cancel the landing. Along with the captain, the first officer was also considered at fault for not taking appropriate action in response to the warning alarms sounding in the cockpit. Additionally, due to the delayed application of the reverse thrust lever, the plane couldn't be stopped before the end of the runway, resulting in the plane breaking through the airport's boundary and ending up in the sea. China Airlines was also criticized for not providing accurate information about crosswind landings in their pilot training and user manuals in this incident. Landing at Kai Tak Airport was a risky task due to its dense population, tall buildings, and surrounding mountains. Finally, in 1998, after 5 years of this incident, the airport was permanently closed, and about 29 kilometers away, a new Hong Kong International Airport was started. If you liked our video, please encourage us by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. We are really grateful to you for your kind cooperation. Thanks a lot.